Last but definitely not least, we have part 3 of our interviews from CPAC 2018. We have 3 interviews with Lawrence Jones, Ruben with the Electronic Software Association, and an extended interview with Andrew Wilkow of Sirius XM and CRTV. So with all that, let's get it started. Welcome to part 3 of our interviews from CPAC 2018. This is TrendChat. I'm your host, Brian Bledsoe. And if you want to connect with us, whether on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, it's all the same name, TrendChat 24/7. And I write for politichicks.com. If you want to read some of my articles, just go to politichicks.com/author/Brian Bledsoe. And don't forget about the book, Politichicks: A Clarion Call to Political Activism, which is available on Barnes & Noble, or at Barnes & Noble and Amazon. Contains over 300 pages with contributors like myself talking about issues from healthcare, education, etc., activism. And it's funny, every time I do this, I only mention like 3 issues, and it's like maybe 16, 17 issues. I got to get better at this, but maybe when I do a commercial for this, I can have a more diverse number of topics. But I guess I'm rambling about it, but yeah, my contribution to the book talks about me becoming a delegate at the Republican National Convention in 2016. And as always, don't just pick up one book. I mean, you can pick up one book. Pick up 4, 5, 100. I mean, it's your money. If you want to get 100, that's great. So I'll tell you, folks. Yeah, I don't know if y'all can hear it in my voice, but this is one of those days. You know, TrendChat's been on for over a year now, and this is the first day where I didn't feel like recording. I don't know. I got like allergies going on right now. I know from the previous episode, if you listen to it, thank you. But in that episode where I mentioned one time that I don't know if I sound nasally. Oh, did I not know what was coming up the next day? That was like I guess the prelude to what was about to happen today. So yeah, I'm all stuffy. I don't even know how I sound right now. I probably sound weird to y'all. I don't know. Or maybe I sound better. Maybe you're like, hey, you ought to be like this all the time. I don't know. But that being said, I'm going to power through it because I definitely want to get this episode out. And also, given it's the last one, so hopefully I will feel better by next Tuesday or next Thursday, at least. So, also, it's kind of a comfort too, knowing that I don't have to talk that much because I'm playing the interviews from last week. So that's great too. So one thing I did want to mention before I get to the interviews is that just overall, I don't know how you feel, whoever listening, about when it comes to disagreements within your own party, or just someone you may be a supporter of, or even if it's a politician or a group. I'm just thinking about CPAC in particular, where I've been going the past 3 years, and every year there was always something that somebody didn't agree with, and that's we're not all going to agree on everything. There's going to be some point of contention somewhere, and in thinking about that with CPAC, also, I'm just thinking about what the remarks President Trump, the president, made, I think yesterday, about due process. And I mean, this is not the first thing I've disagreed with the president on, but just hearing that in particular, like, really perked my ears up, because to hear the president basically kind of want to push aside due process just because of what has happened in Florida. Well, let me go back, I guess, if y'all don't know what I'm talking about. But there was a meeting, I guess, either yesterday or 2 days ago. I actually don't remember off the top of my head. But they were just talking about mental health issues and guns, basically. And it was a bipartisan meeting of members of Congress, and the president was there. And there were a number of things. It wasn't like just one thing that he said, but this one quote that he said about due process kind of really got everyone's attention, especially, if you're a conservative. And so he was just mentioning about someone who has mental health problems and how to, I guess, to take away their firearms before they do harm. And so in that, the quote he said is like, take the guns away first, and then due process second or later. And I can't disagree with that anymore. Like, I really, can't agree with that. We can't let a tragedy that has happened, whether we're talking about Parkland or talking about Las Vegas, we can't let any of these tragedies, whether it's about guns or take your pick, we can't have this emotional appeal to further erode our liberty, our Constitution. And I feel like we are slowly going that direction, regardless of what is being done with the NRA or, Gun Owners of America or the National Gun Rights Association. I feel like we are just slowly eroding our freedom away. And this is not something new. It's not like it just happened. This has been going on for over 100 years, probably. At least 50 years, where we're just basically becoming more comfortable with safety as opposed to liberty. We've become complacent and just taken the freedom that we have in this country for granted, to the point of where we're going to get to the point where we'll just be willing to just give up our guns. The majority would be, and it's going to get to a point to where we're just, I don't know. I'm not saying it's going to happen like tomorrow, but this slow erosion is going on, and something like this just contributing to that. So you can disagree. I mean, people do disagree with that. So with the president, even the most ardent supporter of the president or of anyone can disagree with that person, because I'm not going to agree 100% of the time. So if you disagree, make your voice known. And maybe you definitely have a better chance of influencing the decision than if you had a President Clinton. So you have that. Now I don't want to keep on rambling. So like I said, I don't even know how I even sound saying that. So let's get to our first interview with Lawrence Jones, and he'll tell you everything about campus reform. So here we go. Here with the Lawrence Jones III. Now I'm going to say that because last time we talked, I said the Lawrence Jones. You said what did you say last year?
LBJ3?
No. Last year you said, why you say that?
Yeah, why do you say that?
Now I said that, but now I remember a couple of months ago
I saw a little Facebook Live, and someone said D. Lawrence Jones, and you said, yeah. I said, now now he's just gonna take that. Okay, all right.
I evolved on this. You don't have to get a political answer. No, it's all good, bro.
Yeah. So you have now taken up the editor-in-chief position at Campus Reform. All right, tell us all about it.
It's crazy because I've been doing TV a lot, and I was an activist at one point. I did investigative journalism, and there's a war going on the college campuses today. Conservative students are being silenced. There's a liberal media that is unfair, and so when I was brought the position to be the editor-in-chief, it was something that I didn't take lightly. I prayed about it. I talked to my mentors about it, and I feel like that it was the right direction for me, like where God had me to be. And I'm excited to help the next generation of journalists. We have over 90 correspondents across the country, and they report on things that the mainstream media won't report on.
Now, I know you mentioned about praying over the decision. Now, I know one of those things you had to pray over is the fact that you had to move.
Oh, man, I was not happy about that. I've been in Texas my whole life. I was born and raised in Dallas, and now I'm moving to D.C. in about 3 weeks. And it's tough, man, but I feel like it's that time for that move. I'll be eventually coming back to Texas, but for right now, I feel like God has me here to do work, and I'm gonna try not to get consumed by the swamp.
That's exactly what I'm about to ask. I'm like, you gotta watch out now. You gotta make sure you have that that shield up.
Well, I decided to go the Virginia route because I can at least keep my guns. The state, I'm not used to a state tax because in Texas we don't have a state tax. It's going to take some adjusting to get used to because I'm a Texan till the day I die. But I got a truck before I left. And so I'm going to bring a truck down here to Virginia because, I got to bring a little Texas flavor with me.
Well, I will offer my services to help you move. But you know what? Actually not, because I don't want you to leave.
I know, brother. And I was just telling you, my dad recently changed fields, and now he's a truck driver as well. So y'all share the same field, and I feel like it's admirable what you guys do. I feel like you get to consume so much information being a truck driver because you get to listen while you're driving and working and see what's happening in the world. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, the only way I'm able to do any of this is because of my job. Because paying for flights and hotel rooms. No, none of that for me. Because I drive here, and then I sleep in my truck and whatnot. And so it's great. But enough about me. So what are you looking to accomplish with Campus Reform?
I want our organization to go on the offense. Enough of this bullying. Enough of this silencing. We're going to go after stories. We're going to report on the facts. And when they try to silence us, we'll take it to court. No more of this babying and crying up. No more of that. We're going after the story. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what you're going to accomplish with our Campus Reform.
Some stuff cooking.
Oh, really?
We got some. I'll make sure you get a little exclusive when it happens.
Oh, all right. Go ahead. Now, you know what? Now, this is the last time, we haven't spoken since last CPAC now. Come on now. Don't maybe wait till next CPAC to have you on.
I know. Now you got Christina's information, and so we can do weekly updates and monthly updates and stuff like that.
Now don't say that, because I'm gonna be calling Christine.
Christina's the boss, and she make it happen, then I'll do it.
All right, man. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, man.
Yep, and thanks to Lawrence for joining us. And I'm going to hold him to that. And if you're listening, hold him to it. You say, hey, Lawrence, you told Brian on TrendChat that you gonna come on. Where you at? So, but yeah, I appreciate Lawrence for joining us. And moving up to DC. Definitely gonna need the full armor of God up there. So that's like you said, that swamp will get you. So, next interview is with Ruben, which interview that I didn't expect to have, but yeah. So this kind of came out of nowhere. This was actually after CPAC was over. So here's our interview with Ruben, and then we'll hear from our friends with the Founder Project.
Hello, this is TrendChat, and well, CPAC is over now, but I am at the 14th annual Reagan Palooza, as I was last year, and I got a guest that I actually didn't know I was going to be doing an interview with, but he's involved with a subject that's near and dear to me, which is video games. So I'm here with Ruben with the Entertainment Software Association. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
So let everyone know, what is the Entertainment Software Association?
Yeah, so we lobby on behalf of video games. We represent around 37 member companies, including Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, Bethesda, Blizzard, Activision, and we lobby on behalf of primarily IP and copyright, but we also promote STEM education programs and things of that sort. We love to encourage more people to get into video games, especially publishing, and so we try and get a lot of people involved really early on, and especially diversity, because we want more diversity in the video game publishing community.
Now, one thing I'm thinking about is when you mention video games, most people just start thinking about, okay, just sitting in front of TV, just playing video games. But a lot of this really kind of connects with whether it's what you call STEM,
right?
And that's something if you don't really think about connecting those two together, but they really are kind of coincide with one another.
Exactly. So we do a lot of STEM initiative programs. I always like to bring up one of...
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. So let everyone know what STEM means.
Yes, of course. So STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And we like to put programming in there because that's involved in all of them. And it's one of those interesting things where there's been a lot of research into STEM recently, and we found that if especially young girls are not introduced to STEM by third grade, they tend not to develop an interest in it later on in their lives. And that's an issue for us because we want the most diversity we can get in video games and in publishing them especially, because diversity in the programmers leads to diversity of thought, leads to diversity of games, and that's great for us because the more games with the more ideas, the better it is because more people get involved. So we do a lot of STEM initiatives with young kids, and we especially try and get a lot of women and minorities and groups like that involved in programming so that we can try and hopefully foster this interest in STEM that leads on to later in life, potentially maybe they program a video game.
Okay, so does the organization, I guess propose, or at least I guess you can call it, they lobby in Capitol Hill for certain things that would promote the for STEM or for those things.
We do, and we also we have 5 initiatives. We put on E3 every year. That's what we're most well known for. But we also
what is E3?
E3 is the largest trade show, video game trade show, and it's famous for basically every video game announcement that comes out during the year happens at E3. Every gamer, especially us, look forward to E3 just because it's a ton of fun and you get to hear all about the new games and everything that people are working on. But so that's one of our divisions, but we do a lot of federal and state lobbying on behalf of video games and IP and copyright and STEM education. We also have a foundation that does a lot of that kind of work as well. We always put on a charity called Night to Unite, where we try and raise money for STEM education and things of that nature. And just in general, we try and promote STEM education because, really interesting in our history, in 2007 we fought a court case that kind of changed our major issues, because 2007 video games were essentially being argued that they weren't free speech, and we argued that video games are a form of art and therefore covered under free speech, and so you can't say that video games influence people to do things because they're a form of art. And we won that court case, and since then we've kind of been able to expand our horizon to look at kind of the future of gaming rather than trying to focus on defending games in the moment.
Okay, that was something I was going to bring up, because I remember back in the day where a lot of people were using, trying to say like video games were driving kids to commit violent crime. And I mean, you still hear that now, actually. Matter of fact, it came up talking about the latest, shooting in Florida. So that was something I was going to mention. So I don't have anything else to go on that.
I'm not the expert on that, and so I can't speak on behalf of my company in that regard. But what I can say is that we won this court case in 2007. It kind of changed the view. There's been a ton of studies that have shown that video games don't propagate violence. Nowadays, we like to focus and bring attention to all of the good that video games have done. As far as veterans coming home, there's been a lot of research and studies, and they've now developed a lot of VR platforms to help veterans with PTSD, putting them into safe situations and helping them get through that. That's a huge initiative across our board that we like to help. There's medical applications. One of my favorite stories is one of my favorite games, Surgeon Simulator. So Surgeon Simulator is a cartoon surgeon simulator that is horrific in that you are not a surgeon at all. It is very difficult to control. You are picking up the medical equipment and dropping it on the floor, and then you can't get it back. But it was originally developed as a realistic surgeon simulator, and later it was too complicated for the PC, and they found out that they could release it to the mass market and make it more of a joke in very over-the-top details.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. So, like I said, we're here at 14th Annual Reagan Palooza, and y'all have a setup here. So I guess let everyone know what y'all have here.
Yeah, so we have an Xbox, a PlayStation, and PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and we also have a Nintendo Switch, and then I actually brought my own Super Nintendo. As I was walking out of the house, I figured, why not bring my own? I forgot to pick one up from our office, so I was like, I'll bring my own, because everyone loves the Super Nintendo. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and, getting in here to play some games, and, along with the party and everything else. So, Ruben, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Yep, and thanks for Ruben for joining us. Now, before I play the next interview, I just want to say, as I said in the beginning of this interview, that this is someone that I guess you could say I look up to, especially when it comes to his opinion on political issues, especially. He was the first person I listened to when I was trying to formulate how to make all this make sense, I guess, put it that way. And where, if you don't know my story, a quick little story. I got involved and getting engaged in politics back in early 2008. And so he was on Sirius, and he just made it very clear and rational and logical about conservatism. And that, like I said, I'm going to talk about that in the interview. So I just wanted to say that before, and I'm going to play something from the Founder Project. Then we go right into our interview with Andrew.
Hello, TrendChat fans. The Founding Project invites you to experience our latest resource to take civics to citizens, TFP's new website. Visit us at www.thefoundingproject.com. Be a part of the civics movement with The Founding Project. The Founding Project is a 501c3 education nonprofit. Join us today.
Hello, this is TrendChat, and I must say, I interviewed this gentleman last year, and I'm going to say every time I see him, I'm going to make sure I interview him, because I don't know if I told him this last year, but I tell him every time. He's like a political mentor of mine, because if it wasn't for him, you probably wouldn't be hearing this podcast at all. So, and I'm talking about Andrew Wilkow. He has a show on Sirius XM radio called The Wilkow Majority, and also has a brand new show on CRTV called Wilkow! Exclamation point. How you doing?
Fine, how are you?
So, with the new show, I've been looking forward for you to get back on TV. And so, just tell us about the show and where you're trying to go with it.
Well, when I had the other TV show at the other place, I had never thought that I would ever do TV, right? It was never in college. I was a radio guy, and everyone I went to journalism school with was a TV person. They all wanted to be, anchors, and it was something I never even aspired to. And then when I got the opportunity, I had never read prompter. It was not in my wheelhouse. But I figured if I wrote everything, if I wrote the show myself, if I took it upon myself to write it, based on what I ad-lib in radio, maybe I can do it. So if anything goes wrong, if I know it's there. It's the same thing with CRTV. It's a much shorter show because it's not network ready. We won't have any distribution yet. So I'm writing, 4 to 5 minute monologues. We have a guest, maybe two topics, and then we do a short segment called Parting Shots, and it's kind of the happy zone between network 1 hour show and viral video. So I'm not doing the 5 minute viral video, but I'm not doing the network show. And because it's internet content, you got to watch for attention spans. So we're at about 20-minute, 30-minute shows right now.
Yeah, I've seen the first 5 episodes, and I mean, like I said, your brand of, I guess, conservatism as far as making it very articulate, but also very simple for someone to understand, is something that really has helped me. Because that's why I mentioned before, as far as for you, because I listened to your radio show like years ago, and you really helped me as far as understanding the conservative, point, and trying to really articulate it to someone if you were telling someone about it. And so I'm glad that you're having this TV show to actually even take it to another level. So here's one question I definitely want to ask you, because as far as other people's opinion, I really respect, and I know you're going to be as honest as possible about this. And so years passed with the Trump administration, and I just want to ask you, I don't want to ask for grades, but how do you think it's, the whole administration as a whole has been?
I'm going to say A- /B+ for this reason. If you look at where Trump started, the enemy incarnate of the establishment, right? I mean, they said he's a progressive from New York. He's not really one of us. He's going to damage the brand. He's going to destroy things. Starting where he was a joke to the media. The Democrats were licking their chops. They would love to have him as the Republican Party. Considering all those things, and the fights he's had with not just the Democrats, the Republicans, the fact that we got a real conservative on the Supreme Court, the fact that we actually did cut taxes for individuals and businesses, the fact that we're looking at the regulatory agencies and going, you do too much. There's too many pages of this. Republicans say this stuff all the time and they never act on it. I don't remember a time when George Bush seriously said, we need to roll back regulations. We got a little tax cut, I would say, considering what he was up against, and I probably will never in my life give someone an A+, because that means I don't agree with everyone 100%. Neither do you, right? I don't even agree with my wife 100%. So, and then she would say the same thing about me. And she's the one that walks around and says these arguments can be broken. So when you look at what he was up against to where we are now, building on that, I would say he's done more as a president that, I would the hardest place to be was between Ted Cruz and Rand Paul, right? Okay, so that didn't happen. If it was going to be a Jeb or a John Kasich or a Chris Christie, I think we would be looking at a milquetoast, wishy-washy, squishy Republican administration, and we don't have that. Even when you disagree with him, that if he proposes something, even if I disagree with it, I go, he's serious about this,
Now, that was talking about the first year. Now, previous podcast, I did mention about something recently. So I guess now this is going into the second year. I've heard your point as far as the whole budget deal and the infrastructure. I definitely am not for all this infrastructure. I feel like, as you've mentioned, that most of this should be handled by the states. And do you think that we're kind of, I guess, having a rocky start to the second year?
Yeah, I do think. I think that presidents see federal infrastructure as as a win-win, right? It is proposed as something that will create jobs and something that everybody needs and uses, right? I mean, Henry Hazlitt wrote about this stuff in the 40s. And the problem with it is is that once you put it through the sausage press of Congress and you look at all the places the money kind of has to go off, like, we rarely see a clean bill, right? If we have a bill that addresses whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. There's like 5,000 different writers on it, having absolutely nothing to do. If you call it the Clear Skies Act, right? And then all of a sudden you're finding out people are getting art grants to do clay sculptures. You're like, well, what does that have to do with Clear Skies? Well, the Clear Skies initiative includes reaching out to communities and creating art to communicate the message of blah, 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 blah. And like they have this like crazy twisted logic that if we give art grants to people, they'll help promote the Clear Skies Act. And that's why we had to give them $70 million. So I think that happens a lot more than people recognize because it's the stuff that's buried. We vote on No Child Left Behind, right? Ooh, we don't want to leave any child behind. And then if you actually if you sit down and read a piece of federal legislation, it's actually mind-numbing. You start to pick out things that have nothing to do with the header, No Child Left Behind. And I think that's going to happen with this. I think Donald Trump has his mind in the right place, that if we're going to say we need infrastructure upgrades, we have to fix bridges and roads and tunnels and all that stuff. But we tried this with the stimulus package. What was it? $787 billion budgeted, and only $60 billion actually went to paving roads? I mean, that's less than 10% of the money. Where the hell did the other 90+% go? Well, you would have to follow Alice down the rabbit hole.
Now, I'm a truck driver now, so when you talk about these roads, and one of the things that always get brought up, well, the roads are crumbling, the bridges are falling down. I'm a truck driver. I drive down these roads.
My best friend's a truck driver.
And I don't see any of these crumbling roads. I mean, okay, when I was in Ohio, there was like a couple there.
And that's probably an Ohio State road that the Ohio government should be dealing with.
And that talks about Kasich, so whatever. But as far as seeing all these different bridges and whatnot, I don't see what they're saying. They feel like they're just using that as an excuse for federal money. If
there's an old bridge, right? I live in New York, and the Tappan Zee Bridge, they keep saying it's going to crumble, and maybe it will, right? We saw that bridge collapse in Minnesota. We don't want that to happen. Nobody's saying that the government shouldn't deal with infrastructure. What we're saying is you first have to ask the question, is that a federal project? If it's not, then it becomes a state project. Nobody's saying, well, to prove our conservative bona fides, we want bridges to collapse. That's moronic, right? If you're dealing with the Eisenhower interstate system, that argument is long gone. It's there, right? So fine, okay, fix it. But if you're going to tell me that the only way to fix something is to have every senator and congressman, bulk up these bills with things that have nothing to do with fixing that bridge, and literally less than 10% of what you budget is going to go to fixing that bridge, it's obvious you don't really care about fixing that bridge. And then the next question is, where will the toll money go? I pay $15 to cross into New York City if and when I drive into the city, and I try not to, even though I work there. But the mayor is always complaining about, well, we have to fix the tunnels, we have to fix the bridges, and I'm like, you're charging automobiles $15. I think it's $200 for a tractor trailer. Where the hell does this night and day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year toll money go then?
Yeah, that is the, I don't know how many $1 million question, but that's definitely
$64 million.
All right, the $64 million question. And talking about the bills that have like a million different things that don't even touch what the bill is talking about, it kind of made me think about someone like Ted Cruz. So he voted for this budget. But one thing that I'm thinking about, like, yeah, you may disagree that he voted yes, but kind of like to your point, there was like all these different other things in this budget. Except for there may be 10 good things and 12 horrible things, or maybe 1 or 2 horrible things in this budget, to where, okay, you basically have to choose between one or the other. And this is how all these bills are basically put together to basically make it a lose-lose for someone kind of like Ted Cruz.
The statement I hate, I couldn't stand it when I heard Paul Ryan say it, was, well, we have to protect military families. All right, yeah, okay. What does that have to do with half the stuff they're asking for? When you look at things that are in the Constitution, raising support an Army and Navy, that's raising support. That's in the Constitution. Post offices and post roads. I'm not even going to argue with on the post offices and post roads. But when the Democrats come along with some of these ridiculous spending initiatives, and again, they'll say, well, you don't want to educate children? Yeah, of course I do. But I don't see your role in this. Paul Ryan agreed. It's kind of like a husband and wife you have 4 ways to be: saver, saver, spender, spender. Wait a minute, I did this with someone else before. Saver, saver, spender, 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 saver. Okay, 3 ways, right? Spender, spender, saver, saver, spender, saver. Whatever it is. If you have a couple that's spender, spender, right? The husband overlooks the wife's credit card bills, and the wife overlooks the husband's credit card bills so they can keep spending. Now, the fact that they're plunging themselves into bankruptcy is that's what's happening. But they're ignoring the Republicans have been doing this for so long, letting the Democrats have everything they want so they can get what they want. But the difference is, if you have one family member who says, "Well, I'm spending on heating the house," I'm spending on replacing the roof. And the other person's like, well, I'm going to go get a new pair of shoes. Well, do we need a new pair of shoes or do we need a roof? So if we're going to jettison reason and say, well, everything has to go in so everybody's happy. Well, that's not creative statesmanship. That just means we're paying for a bunch of crap that you guys agreed upon.
Yeah, because one thing that I mentioned before is that it's not the fact that you have Democrats who love to spend and Republicans don't want to spend.
Well, they do love to. They
both like to spend. It's
that spender.
Yeah, it's where they want to spend it. So Democrats want to spend on this, and Republicans want to spend on that. Unfortunately,
there's plenty of stupid Republican spending proposals. Don't. I'm not going to give them a free pass in this. But if you're at the question originally was about Trump, I think he genuinely is looking at this and saying, okay, we need to have an initial $200 billion from government with a $1.5 trillion with public-private partnerships and all this stuff. He's trying to mitigate perhaps the taxpayers' initial investment. I would say that, if you look at those public-private partnerships, they can be just as costly to taxpayers. If you're doing bonds and all kinds of things and they don't pay off, you still got to pay them. But I think he's trying to mitigate these things better than Obama did. But I still at the end of the day, know that this all sounds good up front. We like President Trump. Sometimes we have to disagree with him. I don't think it's going to go the way he thinks it's going to go. That's just my opinion.
Well, it's not like he didn't mention these things in the campaign. I know some people kind of feel like it was like a shock to have this budget deal to go through or to hear about this infrastructure. But I'm like, he mentioned this during the campaign. It's not like this should be new to anyone because he mentioned about wanting to.
Yeah, but have you ever heard a presidential candidate that doesn't talk about infrastructure?
No.
I mean, they all do. And they all say the same thing. It's like when they all say that we got to create jobs. Well, what does that have to do with government spending? If government spending is creating jobs, then the jobs depend on government spending. But they all talk about infrastructure. Every single one of them. I mean, you can go back and look, at the they call it the IST, I think it was, the Intermodal System Transportation. It was the one on George H.W. Bush, and then and Bill Clinton had the next T. It was like new infrastructure. I don't remember what they all said. You could look them up. Yeah. But this has been the executive branch negotiating point since Eisenhower, right? Roads seemingly create jobs, right? And politicians get to take credit for the jobs, and people get the jobs like, yay, politician, I got a job, So it's been something that's been used to sort of calm the waters between presidents and Congresses for a long time.
Now, I guess with the tragedy that happened in Florida has maybe kind of taken some of the attention away from it. Now, you've had a number of things. You had this town hall that happened last night with CNN, but it seems like with every tragedy, we always get this call for gun control, and it's just a continual theme where they just can't get enough of trying to take away our Second Amendment rights.
It's funny. It's called absolute moral authority. So you have these 2 high school students. They are the official spokespeople for this movement, and their credibility is based on the fact that they were directly related to the shooting. When Jamil Shaw Jr. was murdered by an illegal immigrant, was Jamil Shaw Sr. given absolute moral authority? Was he the unquestionable figure? No. When Kate Steinle was murdered, were the Steinles given that same level of unquestionable platforming? No. So it's a device and a creation of the media. They say this person is the issue is personified in them, and if you disagree with what they're saying, you're a horrible person. Don't you see the suffering person? But Jamil Shaw was a kid. You want to know who he was? If you go read about him, he was the older brother from Boys in the Hood. He was a high school football player. He was in South Central LA. I think he had a college scholarship in him, and an illegal immigrant murdered him in a gang initiation. And his father has been shunned from the media. Why is that? Why is he not given the exact same platform to speak about what happened to his son and the need to secure the border? Why? Well, because it doesn't fit the narrative. And if they gave him absolute moral authority, and I've actually interviewed him, he would tell you that if it weren't for an open border, his son would be alive today, if we could just save one life, that kind of thing. So we create this, and then it shuts down debate. I understand I can sympathize with the sense of loss and anger and the the yearning to do something about it. But that's part of what it means to do what we do, is to say, okay, we have to have a sober debate on these things. And I was on NRI TV earlier. They said, when you get past all of this, when the emotions die down, some politician's going to, write a law, and that's going to be the law. And if it's born out of this, this moment where we don't talk about it because we're upsetting these people who are on TV, we find ourselves with a new law that 5 years from now we're going to go, how the hell did we get this new law?
Yeah, I know. Also, we had President Trump has put in a memorandum about, basically about bump stocks, or basically anything that turns I guess in the words, like turn a legal weapon into an illegal weapon. Now, I didn't.
Did you ever hear of a bump stock before Las Vegas?
No.
Okay. I have never heard of it. I've had guns my entire life. I'm an NRA member. I'm friends with the upper echelon of the NRA. 90% of gun owners never heard of this thing. So we're having this. We're being forced to defend something that we didn't even know existed. Fine. If you want to ban something. And I've already pointed out, it doesn't actually modify the gun. The gun being defined by the upper, lower receiver, trigger mechanism, all that stuff. It doesn't really do that. What it does do, and I remember the Hellfire kits of the 90s, is make the gun really inaccurate. Which is probably why most people would never put one on their gun, because you pull back on that thing and it's going to start rattling. If we're gonna ban the bump stock, we're going to do it because it's not something that law-abiding shooters would even want to have, because it's not really a good piece of equipment. But at the same time, if we ban it, 3D printing is here. People. You're talking about two springs that latch onto the back of a broken, essentially a cut slashed stock. Mm-hmm. That those springs, when you pull the trigger, sends the gun back and forth, and the gun's fire. So banning it, if you're going to do it, it's not going to do anything, because people can make these things, and if they're going to kill people with things that are already illegal, guess what? They're not concerned about that. It's like the gun-free zone. Well, I was going to kill a whole bunch of people, but the sign says gun-free zone. I guess I'll go home.
It's just the classic thought that if someone's going to commit any sort of crime, they're going to commit it, and you writing a law about it is not going to stop them.
Make kidnapping illegal. Right? Right. Make kidnapping illegal. Nobody will take anybody's child, and then we have we have magically now have an Amber Alert. Well, we made kidnapping illegal, and now we have an Amber Alert. So clearly, and I'm not saying we should legalize kidnapping. I'm just saying that the law that we agree to abide by only matters if we agree to abide by it. I don't want anyone taking that the wrong way. I'm just saying that if people followed the law, we wouldn't need an Amber Alert.
Yeah. So, I can talk all night about different things with you, but like I said, I appreciate talking with you. You're the one that put me on to Atlas Shrugged, put me on to Thomas Sowell, put me on to Walter Williams, all of those.
I'll just tell you this, I get rarely intimidated in an interview. I interviewed Thomas Sowell, and I would say I was intellectually intimidated. I mean, that guy is, when he unfortunately departs, for a grade or above, we are going to be missing one of our most important thinkers. I don't say intellectual, I say thinker, because Thomas Sowell is inspired an entire generation of thinkers.
And greatly underappreciated. I feel like he should be just as hailed as all these other, great thinkers, but no one wants to really give him,
Have you ever tried to read it? Most people can't read Intellectuals in Society. The book is, it's like 4 Bibles thick. It's a hard book to read.
Basic economics, and I try to go through as many as possible. I know you mentioned Hazlitt as well. I know I'm going through economics in one
That's
lesson.
easy to read.
Okay, yeah.
I like that one, but that's easy to read.
But that's the one I'm going through. So I don't. I just started with Hazlitt from you mentioning some of his books. So I'm just starting to read some of those. So anyway, I appreciate so much for your time. And at the next CPAC, if you're here, I'm probably going to talk to you again.
Okay.
All right. Thanks to everyone to joining us, and thanks to Andrew. And until next week, we'll chat with you later.